Good day, welcome to In the Zone. I'm Craig Zimmerman, and today we did not have to go too far to sit down and talk to Mr. Scott Young. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. So, Scott, you are a local guy that was born and raised here. Tell us about your family, born and raised.
Yeah, my dad's Randy Young. He's been a big part of the community for over 30 years now with Young Funeral Home. My mom is Lisa Young, who was a Schweihofer, so we know they're sprinkled around the county pretty good. So I always say if I'm between my dad owning the funeral home, knowing a lot of people, and my mom being related to so many people, I couldn't get away with much.
That's for sure.
As a kid.
I always say that in St. Clair, if it's a Schweihofer, a Disselrath, or a Westrick, those three families cover a lot of ground.
They do, Clair, yes, right? They do, yeah.
And who knows better than you, right?
That's it.
So you've got a couple siblings. Tell us about your siblings.
Yep, I'm the oldest of three siblings. So I got Nolan, who's 3 years younger than me. He works with us in the business. And then Olivia, she's the youngest. She's the baby. And yeah, she still works part-time, I'll say, and then working on college stuff too.
Okay. So you finished high school in what year?
2011.
Okay. So you went to college, and I'm just going to go out on a limb and say you probably went to Wayne State.
I did. I finished at Wayne State.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
The first 3 years I went to Grand Valley.
Okay.
Not really a rhyme or reason, but I was 18 and wanted to get out of the house, so I did a lot of my prereqs out at Grand Valley. Then the last year and a half, I transferred to Wayne State, finished up, got my degree. And
so now that's the mortuary school, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So how long is the mortuary program at Wayne State?
There's time-wise, there's two different, I'll say, programs. There's like the accelerated, where you can get out in a year and a half, which that's what I did, and then there's a part-time program where people will be working, so sure. It's a little easier, and so that's 2 years. So year and a half to 2 years, but yeah.
So at what time, growing up in a family that had a funeral home, when did you decide that you wanted to follow your dad's footsteps and be in the funeral business?
So probably high school, but I always said that's what I was going to do, but because that's all I knew, but I started, weeding, trimming hedges, sure. Cutting grass, cleaning the cars, holding doors, just a lot of the stuff on the surface. But then, as I learned about it in school and got to meet with families and be able to kind of get into it a little more, then it realized, this is what I want to do. Okay. Just that opportunity to help people was just a unique opportunity, and it's kind of gone from there.
So you sort of grew up in the old funeral home?
The
old one at the current site, or no? Was that?
No.
I can't remember what year the new building was constructed.
No, that was 2000. So okay. The old one, I did live in there when we were I think I was probably 7 when we moved. Okay. To the new funeral home. So that's all we knew. But as kids, we never really thought anything of it.
Sure.
We were playing knee hockey or tag or just running around that place when it wasn't being used, and
yep.
So we didn't look at it. It's interesting seeing kids there now. Sure. Kids love that place. There's just so much space to run.
Right.
And when it's a time that's people don't want to visit, but
right.
Kids just got a different view of it. Like, oh my God, this place is huge. Right. Let's just run around like crazy and eat snacks and go back at it.
What's better than that?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So you recently married. Tell us about your wife.
I am. We got married last October. Girl from Rain City. You'd appreciate that. Yeah. Casey Wagner. With all the Schweihofers and everything around here, thought I'd go down to Rain City, be a little safer. Okay. But yeah, things are going well. Coming up to that first year anniversary. So.
Okay, and you live above the funeral home in town.
Yes, above Fredericks there. Okay. So it's a good spot for her.
Okay.
We like it.
So your career, starting with your father, you've pretty much done everything at the funeral home, I'm sure. Like you said, cleaning cars, weeding, cleaning the parking lot, whatever. So in 2000, your dad took a big step, really, when he built the new facility, because it was Merlin Trumbull's funeral home back in the day. That was the old funeral home. Yeah. Some people around here don't remember, but it was on the east side of where the parking lot ends, pretty much.
Yes.
So
yep.
He's sort of the newest funeral home around from the standpoint of building-wise.
Yeah. He could give you a better story about that than I could, but I just, from him talking to me, he said that it was he thought it was kind of a big deal because it was
Sure.
just, updated, bigger space. Actually, I think he said it was one of the first funeral homes that didn't allow smoking
okay.
in it, because that's where, I guess that used to be the thing. Could people go in and smoke? They'd have a smoking room, so he was a little nervous that people wouldn't like that.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but, now.
Well, I think that, and not knowing the numbers specifically, but I think your business has grown exponentially because it is a new facility.
Yeah, I think that helped him, and a lot of people, do like the facility and the layout and the space and parking. That's another thing that's to our benefit.
So let's step back and let's go back into your high school years, playing sports. So big thing for your time would have been playing baseball.
Mm-hmm.
You played on the state championship team. Tell us about that experience.
It was something that the older we get, I think, is we realize how special it was. At the time, we were just a bunch of guys
16,
being
17,
friends.
18-year-old playing ball.
Just playing with our buddies. And we never really, we took it seriously, but at the same time, we were just having fun. We never went there and felt any pressure. We just went out. If a guy screwed up, we made fun of him, and, it was just playing ball with your buddies.
So tell us about the leading up to the state championship team, say your junior year, your sophomore year, because you had some good runs those years as well.
Yeah. Our sophomore year, I think every sophomore and junior year we did better than what people thought. I think our sophomore year we won the league as just sophomore loaded, a couple seniors, a couple juniors. Junior year we won the regional, which nobody saw happening, including probably our coaches even. So after that junior year, then like Jake Cronenworth kind of came into his own. Tyler Mott was a sophomore coming up to our senior year. He stepped up big. Then we, of course, had Seddon, John Winkler, another kid that just grew like 6 inches, it seemed like, and he just took a next step. And a lot of guys, just kind of came into form, and we just played. And
so, being that you won a regional the year before, did you feel like getting into the postseason, into the playoffs, that there was any pressure, or just the same thing you'd done before, just trying to do one game at a time?
Yeah, it was just one game at a time. I remember our district game, we got down early when Joel was pitching to Marysville. And we never felt like we were out of it. It just was like, okay, well, now we got to score this many runs. And, Joel's going to keep us here. And then it happened. And then from there, it was just like, I think that first game for anybody is just a little jittery, a little tough. Didn't get off to the start we wanted. And then from there, it just all rolled downhill. And, we just, like you said, took it game by game. We kind of knew what to expect more. I think that helped.
Been there before.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we never went into a game thinking like, wow, this team's really good, or wow, we're outmatched. It was just kind of like, yeah, they're pretty good. But we got like 4 of those guys, so I see that every day at practice, you know. So, yeah, it was, like I said, looking back on it now, you see where guys are and where they've come, and it's like, you don't see that in a small town,
America,
you know,
right.
and the same thing for Marine City, football back in their days.
Yep, yep.
Every year that goes by, you look back and it's just more special.
Yep.
You know?
So going into, say, the finals,
Mm-hmm.
do you remember, can you almost remember inning by inning what happened today even?
A lot of it, yes.
Tell me about it.
So I remember, I just remember Jake was pitching and he threw well. And Tyler Mott started off with a big triple. I think we scored like the first inning. We were the home team. He scored like the first inning, and that kind of just, everyone could exhale. Yeah, we could exhale. And they went through the lineup, and I just remember thinking like they could not touch Jake. Like they were not touching him. And then we scored a couple more, third inning, I believe, and you just felt confident.
Don't get too confident, but just, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Do what you do.
Right. It was like, just don't screw up. It wasn't like, don't play not to lose, still play to win, but at the same time, like, just throw strikes, field the ball, and good things will happen. And that's what it was. We got in a little bit of trouble there one inning, but I think Jake got out of it. I know he got out of it, but he threw. It was like 3-1. He had a guy on first. Went out and talked to him.
How many outs?
There was 1 out. And throws a strike, and then next pitch, ground ball, double play, and we're in. So I was like, okay.
What inning roughly?
That was probably about the fifth inning or so.
Up 3-0?
Yeah, I think it was like 3-4 nothing, and then 4-1, but was the final. And yeah, I'll never forget that because we'd watch. We had the last game, so we saw a couple different games, and we'd see the celebrations, and we'd be like, we got to do better than that celebration. Like, we got to do better. So after that last pitch, ground out to Joel. He was playing short, threw it to first, and then as soon as that, it was just like massive.
Pandemonium.
Find the closest guy and just tackle him, and we'll just dogpile. And that's what it was, and it was a lot of fun.
So now going into, say, the last inning or two, 4-1?
Yep, 4-1.
So at that point, you're thinking, we just got to seal the deal and get out of it.
Right. I can't remember how that last inning went. That was a blur.
Well, that's probably something you can't remember, right? It's just because boom, 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 here we are. But you can remember the final strike probably, or like you said, the final play.
I do. I remember the final play, but those first two outs, I couldn't tell you. I was just like, you try not to think about, those getting these two outs, but it was tough.
You ever go back and watch it?
I do, yeah. Actually, during COVID, we didn't have much to do, so we pulled out some old videos and watched that, and it gives you goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the ride home is pretty electric.
It was, yeah, that night. It was a lot. We got to stay in the hotel another night, so that was a lot of fun. Then came home, and I think we had a
parade.
Yeah, the parade was that summer. That's right. That was a rainy parade. I remember we had the assembly or the celebration, and then it just started downpouring on us. So we took it into the mall, and that was crazy seeing all those people.
That'll be something that you probably never forget.
Yeah.
As time goes by, it's just you can remember. It's the scenario I always say is, and you'll recognize this as you get older, but you can't remember what you had for lunch yesterday, but you can remember back to that day perfectly clear.
Right. Yeah. That's it. Just you don't realize how many people were paying attention at the time until because you're just playing baseball.
Right.
It's just, and then you realize it's like, wow, there's a whole community behind you. And then
and now you're sort of like it's folklore now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because in you being in business, you're at the funeral home, so you run into people on a normal basis. I'll bet that some discussion of championship baseball comes up on a fairly normal basis.
Yeah, they'll either remember that I played on that team, or if I get talking with people, they'll ask what year I graduate, and they'll say 2011, and they'll be like, "Were you part of that team?" I was like, "Yeah." But they do. They don't forget. I'll never forget when we played. The regional was in St. Clair senior year, and I'd look over to get the sign from Coach White, and I just remember seeing these people just lying down each wall, each fence, and that was. Nobody ever attends high school baseball games, right? It's not like a football game. But for that regional, there was just people lying down those things. And I was like, wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
small town stuff.
Right.
Good stuff.
Great. Yeah, you don't beat that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you go on to win the state championship, and nobody has a better view of the game and the whole scenario than the catcher, and you're the catcher.
Yep.
So you're sort of the field general in time of settle things down, time out with the pitcher. Tell us about that.
As far as like when that scenario popped up,
I'm
or
sure
just
not just that scenario, but a lot of scenarios. You probably got some coaching from Coach McElrath or Coach White about how, when maybe you were an 8th grader, 9th grader, 10th grader, how and what to do at times.
Yeah. And it was more of just a feel for each pitcher. Like every pitcher was different. Like Joel, he hated his rhythm being disrupted, so I
didn't call time.
I didn't want to go out and see him, but I would throw the ball harder at him. Like, hey, lock in. Okay, you're fine. Jake, he was a little more level-headed. I could go out and have talks with him. Most of the other pitchers I could go out and talk to, but then you'd have to be careful with how you talk to them. Some guys you'd kind of be like, hey, it's okay, right? Hey, get your strike here, and then we'll move on. Good defense behind you, let them work. Other guys be like, hey, just need a strike out of you here. Lock in and do your job. We're fine.
Now, did you have any pitchers that you were able to go out there and the first thing you did was tell them a joke?
No, we didn't do that. No. And some people would just be like, "Well, that wasn't very good, was it?" Or like he'd talk to me, and then I'd kind of laugh and lighten up a little bit. But
so the joke has to come from the pitcher to the catcher, not vice versa.
right, yeah, you got to feel him out a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So your mentors, give me some names.
You know, I think I'd say a lot of my coaches. Sean Sherrill from basketball, he really put us through some tough practices. Mm-hmm. So really anything, whether it was college or rest of that baseball season, like if things were tough, I knew basketball practice was harder. So if I could get through that, then I was going to get through this. Coach McElrath and Coach White, they just it's just watching them work together because like Coach McElrath would say whatever came off his sleeve. And Coach White was kind of the fireman. He'd put it out, smooth it over when we were a little tense. But I respected them both because McElrath always, whatever he said was from his heart and it was just right off his sleeve. And then Coach White, same thing. He could yell at you, but then the next breath he'd just compliment you. He said what needed to be said, then he'd move on. And then from there on, it was probably just my dad, working with my dad and learning every day from him. Mm-hmm.
And so your dad comes from a family not from the funeral business, but the lumber business.
Right.
So
yep.
I know what that is, but tell our fans here that want to talk to you about what business that was.
So that was a sawmill out in Columbus Township on Big Hand Road. He worked, and he did the old school way. He a lot of old machinery that he used because, and again,
grandfather started that?
My great-grandfather started that, yes. And again, my dad and my brother could probably tell better stories about it than I could. They worked out there more than me.
Sure.
People had orders. They'd call him in. He'd cut them. And back in the old days, he would go out, cut the trees down in the woods, and then bring them. But then as he got older, he worked till he was 81, 82. Right. It got to be more of a hobby for him than a job, when he got to his late 70s.
Sure.
But he just that was his home.
Yep.
Yeah.
And your dad worked there as a kid growing up.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that work ethic kind of passed on to my dad and his kids. And that, like my dad, he always says, his dad taught him how to work, mom taught him how to laugh.
Okay.
And then that's something that I think us grandkids try and do too, is just, put your head down and just go to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many people work at Young Funeral Home nowadays?
So there's my dad and I. We have two others, Tim Disserath, Connor Schwaffer, and then my mom. She does the books.
Keeps everybody else in line.
Keeps us in line. Yeah, she's the big boss. I think we all could agree on that.
Yeah.
And then we got a couple part-time people that help us with services or holding door.
Sure.
And then my brother, he works full-time at our pet crematory.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you also have something else going on at Bree Road. Tell me about that.
Yes. So the pet crematory?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, my dad opened the pet crematory probably 8-ish years ago, maybe. And we work with local vets, or if, a pet dies unexpectedly or, hit by a car or something, and then they'll call us and we come and we do pet cremation where families can receive the ashes back, like a private cremation. Sure. Or if they don't want the cremains back, but maybe it's a big dog, they don't want to bury it, or it's winter time, and the ground's hard, then they'll have a communal cremation where they don't receive the ashes back, but it is cremated, and then we scatter it out on some property.
Okay. And you also run a side business out of there.
Yeah, we do a little, my sister and I, we do a little baseball, softball lessons. So I do catching, pitching for boys, hitting, and fielding for softball and baseball. My sister does girls pitching in there. I've done it for probably 6 years now, and my sister just started probably this year. Okay. She's starting to get a little busier there.
So let's talk about teaching batting for young kids, say 8-10 years old. Mm-hmm. So everybody knows somebody that plays baseball, right. Whether it's a child, whether it's a grandchild, whether it's a nephew, niece, people see. So what are the first things that you teach a young child about hitting?
Main thing is getting in an athletic stance. So I compare getting into their batter stance like you would play defense in basketball, like defense like a linebacker in football, or like if you're ready to receive a serve in volleyball. Anything we do to try and get in that athletic stance. So feet apart, knees bent, little bend at the hips. That usually takes care of the body. And then from hands, I just make sure the knuckles are lined up, and then I'll place their bat and kind of so they can feel where that bat should be. And then from there, as long as they can continue to repeat that same stance, I always say if you just try and start good and finish good. So if you start good in that stance and you finish nice and balanced, then everything in the middle will fall into place. As they get older, it gets a little more complicated. I mean, not complicated, but there's more adjustments to be made. But getting in a good stance, getting the hands in a good spot, finish balanced, then working that hand-eye.
How about the child that maybe, the proverbial, their focus goes around and they're not watching the ball? Because that seems to be just a normal occurrence when everybody learns to bat.
Huge, yeah, it is. A lot of kids will keep their eyes on the pitching machine or the pitcher as they're swinging the bat. So we got a couple different drills that we do to get them to really focus on the ball. But yeah, you're right. They where you could have the perfect swing, but if your eyes are staying on that pitcher, then you're not doing any good, right? But it is. That's so I do have a couple different drills we do as far as making them see the ball out of my hand to their bat, and then they'll notice a difference. Like they're hitting the ball solid instead of just fouling it off or swinging and missing, and so then that kind of clicks with them. Like, oh yeah, I got to watch the ball, or I haven't been watching the ball.
Now, do you ever encounter kids that you're teaching that you can tell they're a more natural ability than another?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Some people just have it. I mean, they're a little more athletic, so they can get in the stance better. They can finish balance. They can make adjustments. Some are a little raw, right? It's harder to get in the stance. You can tell they're thinking about it and they're a little robotic, which is fine. They just got to take a couple more reps. Everyone moves at their own pace, which is why I like it. Everyone's different.
Sure.
And then, so I don't move them on to that next step until I think they're ready.
Master that portion of it.
Right. Yep.
Now, vision has a fair amount to do with it. I've gone on YouTube and checked out some different things, and don't hold me to the exact science, but people talk about 20/20 vision. Tony Gwynn, they said, had 20. Would it have been 20/30 vision, or?
Yeah,
but it was different vision. You know what Tony Gwynn was? I think a 318 major league hitter for lifetime, or maybe even a little higher than that. Some of these people, when you look at major league stats, they probably do have a better vision for seeing the ball coming, right?
I would imagine, and knowing the strike zone, and I mean those balls come in 90 to 100 miles an hour. You're looking at the spin of it and figuring out that it's going to break or it's going to stay. Yeah, it's
mind-boggling when you get to that point.
Right.
I say, not that I've ever faced it, but if you watch a major league game and you watch, whatever network is doing the game, and you see that ball coming and it's doing this and it's doing that and it's doing this.
Yeah. No.
It's hard to even fathom that a human can hit it.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how those guys do it.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
And then to think that there's some that do it so much better than others, a 330 hitter compared to a 230 hitter.
Right. Oh yeah, you're a bad hitter. You're hitting 230. You're getting a hit 2 to 3 times out of 10, and it's like all these pitchers are throwing 95 plus, and you're one of the worst.
and the fact that we're in an era that baseball has so many specialties. There's pitchers are not doing complete games.
No.
Like they did years and years ago.
Right.
What are they pitching? 5-6 innings?
Yeah.
Max.
Right around that.
Yeah.
So now sometimes they start out with their starters starts out pitching 1 to 2 innings. And they just every 2 innings because they're trying to screw that rhythm up.
Yeah.
It is. It's a different game. You're not going to see a lot of those 300 win pitchers or any of those big strikeout guys, just because guys don't throw as many innings as they used to.
Now in high school, is there a pitch count when you played?
There was not.
Okay, there is now?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't
To be
know.
honest with you,
Okay, yeah,
I'm not
I
sure.
don't pay attention to that much.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the pitch count stops when they're probably about when they get out of Little League, like 13, 14.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Any other defining moments, whether it be in business or in athletics?
You know, like we were saying, I think if I were to pick a moment out of the last 15 years, obviously the state championship comes to mind. You know, since then, I did play a little bit of baseball at Grand Valley. I didn't play much, but I was there, and we won a GLIAC championship, so that was fun. But any defining moments, it's probably just sports related. That's kind of been my passion in my childhood and just everything.
Are you still playing softball?
I had to take a break this year.
Okay.
I had to hurt my knee, but yeah, I still like playing softball.
Now you're one of the older guys.
Yeah. I'm taking up golf a little more now.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's been my hobby for the summers.
The question is, can you beat your dad?
Sometimes.
Okay.
I'm getting better now.
Okay.
So I probably got him more often than he gets me. We don't play too much. It's usually scrambles, so we're on the same team. But yeah, no, he shows up when he needs to, which is annoying. But it makes me show up.
Exactly.
So.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming by in the zone.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys.
We're going to work on getting your dad in here one of these days.
That sounds good.
When he doesn't tell me he's too busy.
That's right. Yeah.
Maybe I'll just call his boss and we'll schedule it.
Yeah, get Lisa on the phone and she'll get him in here.
Okay. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks, Craig.
If anybody wants to see somebody else sitting in the chair there, you've got the number 586-707-5811. Until next time, we'll say thanks for being in the zone.